This is The Jump Around with Jim Rutledge and Pablo Iglesias, streaming live on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel.
And welcome into the Jump Around 17.0. Pablo, I don't know anymore.
17.0.
We've had a lot of reincarnations of this show, and thanks for filling in last week when I was out in Kentucky. And beautiful country down there. I would recommend
the country of Kentucky.
But
the country land. I know. I just got to give you a hard time. Man.
I know it's not a country. I'm not saying I went to the state of Louisville, but Churchill Downs, Kentucky Horse Park, Mammoth Cave. So a lot of fun stuff down there. I joked that my youngest daughter got a bat from Mammoth Cave. She got a stuffed bat.
Yeah.
And then I got a Louisville Slugger bat from the Louisville Slugger Museum, and then some cool bourbon and stuff down there. So thanks for filling in.
Did you get a big hat, or what is it? How much did you wear seersucker, even though it's not really the time of the year to do that?
It was cold down there.
Yeah.
And have you been to the Churchill Downs area?
I haven't been to the Churchill Downs. I did go to Louisville. I probably went earlier in the year compared to when you were there. I want to say it was like January, February. Okay, yeah. I got to see a Louisville game. It was Louisville UNC.
Nice,
so that was sick.
Yeah.
But it was cold there, so I didn't get to see the Churchill Downs grounds.
So the one thing that I was surprised by was that, like, when we went to this place called Wegner's Pharmacy, go for the experience, don't go for the food, is kind of how I'd say it. Like, I thought it'd be like one of those kitschy diners that would have, like, good diner food.
Mm-hmm.
They're, like, notorious up north in Wisconsin. It's, like, all, like, up north in Wisconsin, I feel like there's, I don't know if a bunch of, like, Greek people from Chicago moved up there, but they have these diners that are, like, called like American Diner, but it's all like these Greek families that run them, and the food is just amazing. It's American style diner food, but everything feels like it's made from scratch, and
a cream of chicken and rice, like soup or something like that. I know exactly.
Sandwich has got like the big thick pieces of bread, and the bacon feels fresh and everything. The complete opposite of this place. Honestly, it could have all been made at Costco.
Yeah.
And like, again, I know what I'm getting into when you go to a diner, but like, I thought it was going to be something that like Denny's was honestly better for the food, and like Denny's isn't anything to write home about, but.
My dad swears by Denny's, no matter what. We're in big city.
Denny's, yeah.
We're in Vegas. He finds the Denny's on the Strip.
Nice.
And we have to go to Denny's. It's like it's one of his traditions. My dad is a very simple guy. Like he'll want to go to Denny's, and
well, I get the diner aspect of it, but the Denny's part for me, I always just try to find local. So I don't disagree with the idea of finding like a diner. Like that diner food is comfort food, and I don't disagree. Like it's a nice experience, but I do like to try to find a local, just from like. You feel like local's going to be better.
Like that local, like I don't know how else to say it, like the grease pit kind of thing. Like, it's just like
greasy spoon.
Greasy spoon. That's it, man. Just get a skillet. Like, hey, you know what? It might not be the healthiest thing, but it's for darn sure pretty good.
Exactly.
Fills you up.
Yeah.
You get those greasy potatoes, that skillet, the peppers, the egg, all of those things,
and
man.
This place,
runny egg too. You can't go scrambled.
No,
you got to go sunny side up and let that egg run.
So I go over medium. So I don't let it. Like I can only handle so much with it. So, but also this place was famous. So the place is, I guess, got its start right next to Churchill Downs, where they let the horseback riders, the jockeys, get like cigarettes and stuff on like credit, and so like that's how it got started. So it's kind of like a general store. It's got that going on there too, and they sold horse liniment, and now it's like, hey, it's horse liniment. People can take it, and horses can take it, and I'm anti taking things that horses can take too.
What? It's
liniment.
I've never. Enlighten me.
I don't really know.
What a great start to this.
Yeah, I wasn't really going to get into
talk
it.
Eventually.
I wasn't going to really get into it, but like liniment. I think it's kind of the idea of like Wizard of Oz, where he's selling like all the ointment. Like people go around like snake oil salesmen. Like, so the liniment is like, it's supposed to help with your ligaments, and it's just like
I mean, my legs are sore right now. I don't know if I'm going to experiment too much with horse like.
And again, I
lotion
think,
or something like that.
So it's called horse liniment. It says it's for people. And again, I have a hard rule that if I don't want something that's for horse and people. And so like I'm not gonna like, at least as far as medication, like horses eat carrots and I'll eat carrots and apples and that sort of stuff. But I think it's just like one of those homemade like snake oil remedies that like the ingredients are neither going to hurt or help a horse nor hurt or help you.
It's like some herbal stuff. Like, are you sure?
Where
were you?
There's a big ass horse on the bottle too.
Where did you stop in Louisville?
Right next door. It was like a historic place. It's been around. But the thing was, I was surprised by that.
And your wife and kids were cool with this place.
My wife
too?
was immediately worried, but more because this was the other part of it.
I would be too.
Not so much once we got inside, but the neighborhood. I was shocked of how run down everything around Churchill Downs is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I expected it to be how, like, you like Wrigley Field or something like that, where you have everything built up around it. It would be a lot of pomp and circumstance. And honestly, it was more of like how Miller Park, or it would have been not Miller Park, County
Wrigley.
Stadium. County Stadium, even the White Sox a little bit too, where it's like, wow, it's
that's
just,
my neighborhood, man. Don't be coming after my neighborhood too much like that.
I'm not saying it's a bad neighborhood. I'm just saying that, like, you just expect more pomp because of what teams have done around stadiums over the last 30 years. You just expected it around Churchill Downs. It wasn't like anything like super like scary or sketchy. It was just more of like, wow, I didn't realize Churchill Downs was like right here.
It's I had a similar. I'm not saying like the area is run down by any means in Green Bay, but it was like when I went to Lambeau for the first time. It was actually Josh Allen's rookie year, so my buddy and I got to go see Josh Allen and the Bills when he was a rookie playing against the Packers, and I was so shocked to know that Lambeau Field is basically just around this giant neighborhood.
Right.
Like, we were talking about this earlier, too, where the USPS said that, like, over 1,200 people or something like that, almost over 1,000 people won't be getting their mail delivered during
NFL
draft week.
Yeah. It's I don't know if people in Green Bay are going to want the draft to come back, but that's neither here nor there. So we want to talk about Badger basketball. We have Ken LaVicka coming up a little bit later. Why do we have Ken LaVicka on? It's because he is the play-by-play voice for FAU basketball. He was a play-by-play voice for FAU basketball back when they went to the Final Four a couple of years ago. And then you have Elijah Martin played in the national championship game for the Florida Gators. He, as a former Owl, Dusty May, Vlad Golden, and then why it ties to the Badgers is Nick Boyd was a starter on that team, and he is now, after playing a year at San Diego State, he has a year of eligibility left. And I like the strategy from the Badgers where you have the older players, where you got a guy who's going to be in their 20s coming to play. And Nick Boyd, listed here as a senior, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists at San Diego State. So we thought we'd start here with talking with LaVicka. We'll get to him a little bit later, but that's why we start our conversation talking about some of the players coming in for the Wisconsin Badgers. And I guess we can start with Nick Boyd coming in. We'll get to Daniel Freitag leaving, but I still want to talk about Nick Boyd coming in. 6'3", 175. Look, he is. ESPN has him as a top 50 recruit, and as far as a transfer, so he's coming into play, and he's played. I mean, as a freshman, he played 23 games, 38, 27, and 31, 15, 23, 23, and then 30 minutes a game. And he's a guy that has the pelts on the wall from having played in big-time games and played in big-time tournament games. And he's coming in to be a starter, I'm guessing, alongside Blackwell if things go as planned.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I mean, it was a huge weekend of moves, too, for the Badgers, and it clearly shows where Greg Gard and company are headed towards recruiting. We've talked about this. If your freshman class isn't superb, that doesn't mean that it's an all-for-naught year. I mean, especially now with how fast and how continuous the transfer portal era is evolving into. This seems like the good rhythm that Wisconsin is going into. Like, we saw the success story with John Tonje. I'd love to see if Nick Boyd becomes an All-American or even any of these guys coming in from the transfer portal. But it more so shows exactly where Wisconsin wants to go and that nobody is I guess I don't want to say awful. You get what I'm trying to say. They're opening the door like, hey, if you could play ball, obviously, hey, you could play ball and come play at Wisconsin. But what I'm saying is that they are going after guys who are seasoned. Like that's where they want to jump into the transfer portal. Guys who have had that deep experience, guys who have proven themselves. And again, it's not like saying like it's either Cooper Flag, Con Knipple, or bust. Like again, there are other options out there in the transfer portal, and you can get guys who have performed at a very high level at either mid-major schools, very close to it, that have competed with Power 4 schools. Like I think it's super cool to see that Wisconsin landed Nick Boyd. Greg Gard obviously excited about it, and Nick Boyd excited for it too. This is a lot of buzz for Badger Nation.
I'm gonna give you something that I just saw here that is mind blowing. Yeah,
you made a face. I was wondering like what's happening here. What you discover?
So John Tonje was born April 23rd, 2001. Nick Boyd, born April 23rd, 2001.
Okay, so what you're saying is...
That's why I made that face, because I was like, what? Because I wanted to see how old Nick Boyd was. So, again, he'll be an older player for the Wisconsin Badgers, and I like that as much as you can do that. I initially just kind of looking up. So, let's not forget, Ben Bruss brought this up when he joined Jim, Matt, and Molly, that a show that I do with Matt Hamilton and Molly Brown, weekdays on ESPN Madison, that AJ Storr was a success overall. Second team All Big Ten. He helped get the Badgers to the tournament. He kind of checked out at the end of the year, but overall, that was still a successful recruit. You bring in a guy for 1 year and he makes second team All Big Ten. And honestly, if he finished stronger, maybe he would have gotten first team. Obviously, Tanjay, a bigger success with first team All Big Ten and then second team All American. Even Klesmit, which is kind of pre-NIL portal, but Klesmit was a transfer as well. So the Badgers have had varying levels of success, but hopefully Boyd, I don't think second team All Big Ten is out of the question for Boyd. Like that sort of impact for him. I don't think All American or first team All Big Ten or second team All American is on the table for him.
Seems like the stars are aligning though.
Right.
The same birthday.
Yeah.
Clearly, we're running it back.
But I do think
you heard it here first.
A less controversial type AJ Storr impact where he could come in and be a key player. We'll talk with Ken LaVicka about him a little bit more, and we'll talk about the state of college basketball. Yeah. We're a school like FAU, and Ben Brust teased me about this as well, that obviously I wanted the Badgers to do well, but otherwise for my school, and you went to Bradley, we're kind of stuck with hey, once in a while we might get a nice year, but otherwise we're going to root for our guys on different teams because that's kind of the best you can do nowadays. And there's no hard feelings. Just we'll get to Blackwell in a minute. I am worried that he might just be too good for Wisconsin, but we'll get to him in a minute. I want to talk about the next recruit they have coming in here, and we'll go in order here. So according to college basketball content, and I think this is the ESPN's rankings, Nick Boyd was the 45th overall ranked player in the transfer portal at all, the 11th best shooting guard, a 4-star transfer player. The next one on this is Andrew Rohde, and he's a Wisconsin kid, and he played his high school ball near Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 6'6", 202, listed as a guard. I think he's been a point guard. The Badgers have a plethora of guards, so I don't know if they're going to play some small ball and maybe play him at a forward position and basically play three guards if you had Blackwell, Boyd, and Rohde, because you're not bringing. I mean, Rohde could come off the bench as well, but they don't really have. As we look at the roster, someone who could play that 3 position. I'm not sure Rohde's the guy either. Maybe they're going to try to bring someone else. But last year, an effective year for him at 9 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. He's a good ball mover. He's a good penetrator. He can play the point guard. But if you have him off the ball, I'm sure the way this Badgers offense works, we've seen this with Storr. We've seen this, and I know that they changed it with Kirk Penny, but we see this with Tanjay. We go all the way back to Alondo Tucker or a million other players for the Wisconsin Badgers that that forward position is a position that you will have the ball in your hands and be allowed to be a playmaker. So Rohde's a guy that I think can have a good impact on this team. And I think the hope for the Badgers this year is that obviously last year they had Tanjay, and that was it. And the year before that was Storr. If they can get a couple guys to hit, that can kind of have a similar impact as one guy. So Rohde's a guy they need to hit, and it's a good pickup for them.
Yeah, looking at Rohde too, what stood out to me, according to 247 Sports, is the transfer star ratings that they have. So Andrew Rohde was a 3-star coming out of high school, and now he's a 4-star out of the transfer portal recruit, which I think just shows a lot too. You can do more than just what your high school star ratings say about you too, which I think is awesome to see how well he's developed. And again, obviously Greg Gard and company are making sure that they go after a guy like this because they know that this is exactly what he brings to the table and everything. So it's good to know, one, that he came out of high school into college as a 3-star and now coming in as a 4. I think that's a really good sign. Again, I don't know exactly what the product's going to look like on the court, and I'm curious to see what the rotations are going to look like, but that is a small sign to me right now in terms of the evaluation that, hey, this guy is definitely legit. He is not only just stayed at the level that people believe he could have, he elevated. He's playing at a higher level than people expected him to be when he came out of high school. So honestly, great evolution there. And yeah, I'm curious to see. We mentioned with Nick Boyd too. I got to look at Rohde's numbers, but Nick Boyd, a 37% shooter from 3. It's so very clear.
Rohde, I was actually going to get to that. Yeah. So when he was a volume scorer, I believe it was a smaller school. I don't know which one he played at, but
St. Thomas, I think.
I knew it was
Virginia.
a Saint. I just didn't know which one. So 17 points and was 32% from 3. 2 years ago, he was terrible from 3 at Virginia, 26%. But last year, 41%. And so he's been improving his shot. And someone that I think that you can have some optimism that he will continue to be a guy that can knock down shots. Maybe he's not a volume shooter, but we'll get to the way the Badgers look like they're building their team. Yeah, Boyd, Look, at FAU, he took less shots. He was at 40% when he was required to be a little bit more of a volume player at 35. So what is he in the long run? I don't know for sure, but I do think he's a player that I think that 35% is probably where you got. So I got a 40% three-point. Let's assume Rhodey ends up around 35%, Boyd at 35%, and you're bringing in some guys who can shoot. And then the last guy we're going to talk about here is a transfer from Portland. Now, this one's a little bit further out. He's a 4-star portal recruit, but he's 171st overall, 32nd power forward. But at the same time, he's the one with the least amount of experience and tape, really. But he is a player to be excited about. One, because the Badgers didn't have a lot of bigs. They really got Nolan Winter, and then I don't know. And so Austin Rapp coming in, 6'10", 230 pounds, and he is 14 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists per game. He shoots 35% from the field, so he's a guy that can. I'm sorry, 35% from 3-point, so he's a guy that can knock it down. And I think the only interesting part from him is that my understanding is that he is a far better. He shoots 11 field goals per game, and 8 of those are threes.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering is he going to be a shoot first, or is it going to be Nolan Winter that's going to be the primary post guy? Which honestly, if that's the case, that's not the worst thing in the world. I think that'll be fine. Like if you versus having a power forward and a center, you run 2 bigs, and you get Rapp who's 6'10", and I believe Nolan's listed at either 6'11" or 7 even, something like that. But one of the other things that actually stands out to me, just looking at some more stats, is that he had 45 blocks last season and just corralled over 200 rebounds, which also, like, hey, I can't tell you everything about, what is it, the West Coast Conference? Yeah. I can't tell you everything about the West Coast Conference, but if you're the freshman of the year, you still got to come in with some pretty legit credentials. So I think it's good not only to add that depth that you need, but depth for the long haul, assuming. Because, And
it's more than depth. He's a starter.
Yes.
Like, immediately. So, I mean, if I'm guessing today, it's Blackwell and some sort of setup here. Blackwell, Boyd, Rhodey, and Rapp. I think those are your starters. And so it's a small team. And if they built out that team, what stood out to me, Pablo, is that Kirk Penny brought this new offense, a lot of three-point shooting. The defense suffered, and offensive rebounding suffered. And we've joked more on Jim Matt and Molly than on here, but the Badgers are a mid-major, and it's not a knock on the Badgers. It's just with their budget, and they're in a major conference, but they kind of have to spend. They're more middle of the road as far as what they're spending. It's a little bit like the Milwaukee Brewers, where you're going to have to be strategic. You're going to have to be always thinking ahead, and you're going to have to have a deep tournament run, in this case for the Badgers, you're going to have to get luck. And so I've adjusted my expectations for the Badgers. Like, go out there, put out a good product, go put out a winning product, put out a NCAA tournament-worthy product, ideally 9 or higher seed, and then see what happens in the tournament. And if you make the Sweet 16, it's an A+ year. That's kind of my new expectation for Badger basketball. But also with those traditional mid-majors that we talk about, like an FAU or others, a lot of times you have to find players that have warts, for lack of a better word. And so I don't know what Rhodey is defensively or Rapp in these sort of conferences, even Boyd, but they do look like they all can move the ball, score on offense, and knock down the three.
Obviously, you want to be a good defensive squad, but let me ask you: do you feel like Wisconsin is trying to get back a little bit to that style of play, or obviously, again, you want to enhance the defense, but
I think they picked a lane.
Where do you think they want to go?
I think they picked a lane, and I think that their lane is weak. It's going to be easier for us to recruit. There's more players, especially like think about AAU and all this other stuff. There's more players out there, a bigger pool of players that can shoot the ball, move the ball on offense. And, maybe they are a little bit deficient defensively. It's not like Greg Gard doesn't want the team to play defense. I'm just saying, like, when you're recruiting people for their abilities, I think you're going to have more and more guys who are shooters, who can score the ball. And I think their idea is, let's try to outscore these teams. It worked for them last year. And Tajay turned out to be more of a complete player than they maybe thought they were going to have. But this offense still, he shot a lot of threes. Blackwell shot a lot of threes. And I think there'll be a little bit of a year-by-year sort of push with this, but this upcoming year, I could see a team where Winter's the only true post presence. I don't know if Rhodey's got a back to the basket game once in a while, but we've seen teams make runs and be good teams where you have one true big, and like Rapp's a big, but he's like he wants to be outside. So that just opens up driving lanes. That opens up opportunities for the post for Winter, and it opens up a lot of shots to fall. So I think in today's, we'll see what happens with after the settlement in the NCAA and how the dust settles on all that. But I think for the next few years, I think the Badgers could just be a team that says, you know what, we're just going to try to outscore you. Of course, we're going to try to play good defense. Of course, we're going to try to be good at everything else. But the players we recruit, most importantly, we want them to be elite at something, and we'll choose shooting.
Yeah, defense hasn't taken a backseat with recruiting. It's more of like they're in the passenger seat. Like they want still good defensive players, but who's more in the driver's seat? It's your 3-point shooters and guys that can spread the floor and athleticism. I know over the last 2 years too, not saying that the teams haven't been like, unathletic at all, but you've noticed that they've moved a lot faster. I remember last season too was that the big thing was 2 seasons ago when Chucky Hepburn made this huge jump. Greg Gard was actually joking, saying that all he saw was Chucky Hepburn eat salads for an entire offseason because he wanted to get faster, he wanted to shed pounds, and everybody just wanted to challenge each other and run fast. And there seems to be more of an athletic style with this Wisconsin offense over the last few years that I've noticed in that trend. So it's really cool to see, again, that is the way that in general basketball is evolving into.
Right.
And again, it's not like just saying we're not talking NBA All-Star game lack of defense level. You still want to play defense, but obviously you got to. It sounds like a no blank Sherlock statement. You want to score more points than your opponent, but you want to do it at a very high level and do it at an efficient level.
You can look at Ben Bruss as an example of when he got here, or other players, even Decker. And a lot of them had to ride the pine and figure out how to play defense before they got the minutes, and they had to develop into good defensive players. And they got the most out of their ability to be good defensive players, even Kaminsky and all that. I just think now you don't have the ability to develop these players year over year. So it's more of, here's a defensive system we're going to run. You have to be able to play in this defensive system and give effort in this defensive system, much like the NBA. Effort is a big part of it. Try to play defense in the system. And I don't want to get into the whole NBA stuff, but when it matters in the games, you want the players trying on defense there. And it's the same thing, the Badgers, it's more of, hey, we're more likely to be able to get someone that can shoot the ball and maybe is limited defensively, then we're going to get some all-around player.
Yeah.
That just doesn't seem like for their budget, they might be able to get one all-around player, or they can get a bunch of guys who can knock down the shots. And again, BYU, when they had Jimmer Fredette, those teams were fun to watch and they were enjoyable. And I give credit to Greg Gard for adjusting how Badgers have to recruit on the fly, and obviously Kirk Penny for help developing this offense here. So this is not a knock on Wisconsin. I just think we should be excited. You're going to see more points. Last year is not going to be the aberration as far as how they're going to score points. That's kind of how I view it.
Even as gut-wrenching as that loss to BYU was, that was probably the most exciting game that I've ever seen in Wisconsin. Next, actually, it's up there. The Purdue buzzer beater for the Big Ten championship. That was cool to be courtside for that one.
I was at the Kohl Center for that one too, and that was great. The one thing I want to get to, and again, if you're just joining us, Ken LaVicka is going to be joining us in a few minutes here, and we're going to talk a little bit about Nick Boyd, and we'll talk about the state of college basketball with Ken as well, because where he calls the games, he's basically FAU's Matt LePay. So where he calls the games, it is not a school that has a ton of money to be able to keep these players, let alone get them in the first place. So they even more so have to find these diamonds in the rough. But Blackwell is the one guy that I'm worried about here, just because with Blackwell, he's just one of those players that when he's entering the portal and he's someone that is talented, and I will say I always want to call him Josh Blackwell because he's a player on the Bears with that name, but John Blackwell, 6'4", scoring guard, can be a point guard, in the Big Ten Conference, scoring 16 points, grabbing 5 rebounds, 2 assists on 45% shooting. He's going to at least see what the NBA draft scouts have to say about him. I'm not worried about him just declaring to go pro, but if you're good enough, and he is good enough to at least see what the scouts have to say, I just worry that someone's going to come, whether it's Louisville, whether it's Arkansas's got money, BYU. I mean, there's so many schools that have more money that you don't even think about than Wisconsin, and what happens if they come with $1 million? I think he is closer to $1 million player than we realize, and I would not fault him at all if he took that money. Greg Gard wouldn't fault him, and this is the way the college basketball works. That I'm worried that Blackwell might just be, this sounds negative, too good for Wisconsin. That Wisconsin has all the best intentions, and I'm not even going to get on the fundraising or money going to the athletic department, but my guess is they could probably max out at $300,000-$400,000 for Blackwell. And Blackwell's dad and Blackwell himself have said the right things about wanting to be loyal and wanting to be committed. There's a level of commitment and loyalty, but then there's a level of Greg Gard would say, hey, man, if you can get $600,000 more from somewhere else, there's no guarantee you'll ever make that money in 1 year again in your life. So go take it.
Yeah, I really hope it doesn't happen either, but I can't rule it out. That's the scary thing about it is, I want him to stay, and heck, I think we heard from Sharif Chambliss when he was on earlier in the season is that even in season they were making sure that they were trying to make sure that guys like John Blackwell and Nolan Winter. I know that Nolan signed the deal that he's back next season, but they. Even in season, like obviously they had a job to do. They were focused on what they wanted to do, but they were still having those conversations, making sure that those guys stay here in Madison. So, I mean, hey, it's not like it was this big secret either. Like Sharif was pretty straightforward with us saying, too, like we want to keep a guy like John Blackwell here, and they are very much doing those things.
Yeah, I mean, AJ
doing
Storr,
everything they can.
Blackwell's numbers are arguably better than what Storr did at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And Storr got $1 million. So that is where, like, that's just the state of college basketball. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I'm not saying that, like, Badger fans should be angry or upset. Badger fans, just keep your mouth shut on it. Like, if he goes, he goes. Just like it doesn't feel the same as Chucky, but because Chucky was here longer and he left, so it was like you had this sort of, like, emotional tie, so, like, good for you.
Yeah.
And Blackwell's really had one great season here. He's been here longer than that. But just remember that these are young men, and they're getting life-changing offers for money. And so if he does leave for the money, I am not going to fault him at all. And I think Greg Gard, as we touched on earlier, I'm not saying he's counting on that, but when you add Rhodey and Boyd, 2 guards, those could also be your starters next year. So they're going to have to do more in the portal. The Badgers don't have enough on this roster to compete because you're talking about what? Jack Robinson, another young player. We didn't see him do anything last year, so I'm not counting on him doing much of anything. No offense to him. And you have Will Garlock coming in. He's not going to be physically ready to play. A big is never physically ready to play. Maybe he gets a few token minutes, but that's not what I guarantee Gard wants. And then you have Kinzinger coming in. I forget his first name, but Kissinger coming in, and he's a good player. And again, I don't know what you're counting on for a freshman. Janicki did some things as a freshman for the Badgers, but you're not going to count on him. But he might have a bigger role if Blackwell leaves.
Get Zach Kinzinger.
It's hard. I could see it. I know how to say it. Kinzinger.
I'm not even going to try it. I'm already getting tongue-tied doing this.
The player that I wanted to talk about before we get to Ken LaVicka is Daniel Freitag leaving. And this is kind of the state of where college basketball is at nowadays because he's a guy that the Badgers, a top recruit from Minnesota, would have even gone not that long ago the Nolan Winter route where, hey, you play a little bit as a freshman, then you play a little bit more as a sophomore, and you'll work your way up, and you'll get the opportunity. Now Freitag's going to go somewhere else. I don't know if it's a Minnesota. I don't know if it's taking it down a level, but that's where it's at. But that's the one trade-off here is that it's a bummer that I'm not mad at Gard or Freitag for not working out. It's just I kind of felt that coming because unless he was going to, especially when they started bringing in players like Nick Boyd, we're going to talk to Ken LaVicka about in a second, that kind of was right on the wall.
Yeah, we talked about it last week a little bit too in the jump around with Jesse Nelson and I. Just the same thing I said last week was it is just disappointing. Not on Daniel Freitag in any single way. It's just sad because you kind of want to, you almost fall in love. You romanticize with the idea of like what could have been. In so many different ways. And, like, again, he came in with some big hype. He was exciting. Like, some of his high school tape, too. I thought they made, like, a state championship run or something like that, a pretty deep run. He was on a very good team in high school. And, to come over from Minnesota, too, and he had, I believe, an offer from Minnesota and instead chose the Badgers. He was recruited here for a little bit. Again, it just feels like that when I say disappointed, it's more of, like, man, I just wish he panned out a little better. And it's not like a knock on him by any means. It just maybe he came in like what the system was when he was being recruited did evolve over the last few years. So just tough to see. And really, I just hope that he gets to a good spot, a good school picks him up, and we could see him shine somewhere.
Well, we're going to be joined by FAU play-by-play voice Ken LaVicka. I call him like the LePay of FAU. We're going to be joined by him in a minute.
Big credentials.
Right?
Big credentials.
I put a lot of pressure on him. He'll talk about Nick Boyd. But, look, Free Talk's a guy I would love to make his way down to FAU. That's
any reason in particular?
Right. But then
I'd love Free Tech to go to Bradley too.
But then he could take a step
Sure.
to a bigger school after that. So we'll get to Ken LaVicka in a minute. But shop Beauty Rest Black Mattresses at Steinhoffel's. Beauty Rest Black Mattresses use sleep climate technology that transfers heat away from the body. Triple strained pocket coil technology to give you the most advanced support system in a mattress. Right now, the new Beauty Rest Black is only $42 per month when you use the Steinhoffel's 60-month financing. Plus, get up to $300 in Steinhoffel's cash. Shop in-store or online at steinhoffels.com. Ken LaVicka next.
Is here at Steinhoffel's. Save 10% on all in-stock and special order furniture, dining, bedroom, sofas, and so much more. And with Steinhoffel's special 60-month financing, your dream room is now even more affordable. Don't miss your chance to refresh your home with the brands you love. It's the best brands, best prices sale, only at Steinhoffel's and steinhoffels.com.
And we are thrilled to be joined by Ken LaVicka. Now, Pablo, we could just bring Ken on right now to talk about Chicago Bears. He's a Chicago guy like you are. And he's a White Sox fan like you are as well. So you guys can maybe commiserate another time about the White Sox. But, Ken, little do people know that you got your start kind of in broadcasting and things like that up here in Madison at the time, Madison Sports Radio. Thanks for hopping on and good to see you.
Jim, good to see you. Good to see you guys. Yeah, I was a 7th-month host of the old Badger Hour on Madison Sports Radio 100.5. Me and Steve Homer True just hanging out for an hour every single day. So we go way back. That was during the Bielema era, though. So I'm an old man at this point.
Well, and that's why I call this show like the Jump Around 18.0, because it really was the Badger Hour into the Jump Around, and then we've kind of just turned this show into a digital show now. But
we upgraded. You started the show at 17.0 today, and now all of a sudden we're 18 within like a half hour.
We keep on making the trade, and then that's the other part of it. Ken and I were basically traded for each other because I'm the Wisconsin guy, but I came back up, and Ken went down to West Palm Beach, and then he got involved with FAU, my school, and he's been calling those games. How long have you been the voice of FAU basketball, football, and many other sports down there?
Yeah, I just concluded year 18 as the men's basketball voice of FAU, and I'm going to be entering year 17 as the football voice come August when FAU goes to Maryland. So you know as well as anyone, Jim, I have seen the basement lows, and then I've seen the improbable, inexplicable highs of a Final Four run. So I pretty much, I started in the Howard Schnellenberger football era. So that also, as aged as I am with the Bielema, Wisconsin reference, we're going back Howard Schnellenberger in my time here in Boca.
Yeah, so it's been a heck of a run there. We're bringing you on because, obviously, the Badgers added Nick Boyd, a former FAU Owl, as part of that Final Four team. But I wanted to talk, just in general, it had to be fun for you. It was fun for me, and I think this affects Badger fans and the idea that these guys know how to win. You had Davis with Arkansas. You had Dusty May and Vlad Golden at Michigan. Obviously, Elijah Martin at Florida. There's a little bit of magic dust still left on some of these Owls as they transfer throughout the tournament because the Badgers haven't been to Sweet 16 now pushing 9 years.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned all those names. Elijah Martin, now a national champion. John L. Davis is, I think, a second-round NBA pick. Vlad Golden's played his way into a borderline late first, early second-round pick. But just from a winning perspective, and I truly believe that this is actually a tangible thing, Nick Boyd is part of that core group that knows absolutely how to win, understands what it takes to compete for a championship. And I think that's more important now than ever in college basketball. Because, man, is it easy to find a guy with stars next to his name coming out of high school, or someone who put up 12 and 7 at their first stop in college. It's a whole different thing to find a guy who doesn't panic when there's 5 minutes left in the game, a guy who's already put up Major Hardware, an East Regional Championship, a 35-win season, a guy who's been a tenth of a second away from playing UConn for the national championship like Nick Boyd was. A guy who then took a chance on himself, went to San Diego State, and finished all-second team in the Mountain West, one of the best mid-major conferences. You're not getting an empty husk of numbers here. You're getting a guy who has been through the most circumstantial battles of the last 3 years of college basketball, total winning DNA guy. And again, it might sound cliche, but it means something. And I think it's the type of guy that Wisconsin desperately needs to get over the hump, because they have not had a ton of those guys. And I don't mean to disrespect him, because I know he's coming back, but A.J. Storr has made 17 different moves in his college career, and the guy hasn't won anything. And so I think that having a guy like Nick Boyd is going to help that process, even for a guy like A.J. Storr.
Yeah, Ken, first off, I mean, Jim and I are definitely excited to hear this. I got to paint the picture, though. Riley Yauk, our producer over here in the Everlight Solar Studio, I could just tell by the way that you were describing Nick Boyd, I think Riley wanted to run through a brick wall, because he's the biggest Badger fan out of this entire group. So, hey, we know what Nick Boyd brings. We know the credentials that he has. But I want to ask the flip-flop of this, like, of how you see him fitting into Wisconsin's newer system of this offense. Where do you feel like that Nick Boyd fills a void heading into next season for this Wisconsin team?
Well, based off of watching Wisconsin over the last 2 years, but especially last year with Greg Gard, gone are the days of the set shot bull lion basketball, have to work the clock down under 10 before you send it into the post. I think what Nick Boyd does is he comes in and he is always going to be a pass-first point guard, but he can create his own space. He's really good off of the high pick and roll. And then you've got a guy in Nick Boyd who can also step back and hit the three-point shot. He is a very capable three-point shooter. He is a much improved defender. I did not know what he was going to do defensively when it came to going to San Diego State. He was a pretty solid defender at FAU, but San Diego State, the way they defend is totally different from that perspective. But he held up well. He's going to move his feet. He's going to fit the defensive profile. But I mean, there's no reason for him not to be the starting point guard for Wisconsin. And I would argue that he is going to be probably the most dynamic, versatile point guard that Wisconsin has had in the last decade, if he's able to stay healthy and to be used the way in which I think Dusty May used him, and then certainly San Diego State used him a year ago.
Talking with Ken LaVicka, play-by-play voice for the FAU Owls, having him on to talk about Nick Boyd and his fit with Wisconsin. But you mentioned Dusty May a few times. I have this concern because I like the Badgers too. I want Dusty May to do well. He's a good coach. What does he bring? I mean, we saw it year one here at Wisconsin, at Michigan, that they went out and won the Big Ten tournament, and they got to the Sweet 16. How big of a problem is Dusty May going to be in the Big Ten?
Oh, a significant problem. I mean, this is a guy that is going to win a couple of Big Ten regular season championships. This is a guy that is going to be able to have his team in a position to win Big Ten tournament championships every single year. He is a master recruiter. He is a player's coach, but he is also a tactical master. So I think that, especially at a school like Michigan, where it's going to be football first. You're not going to have the type of consistent microscope that would have been on Dusty May if he went to Indiana, which I think is just a pressure cooker where you walk in and you're already behind the eight ball. You're because of the amount of vitriol and the amount of spotlight that's on you at Indiana, it puts you in a bad spot. Dusty went to a place where he's going to be appreciated. He's not going to have every single move nitpicked, and I think because of that, he's going to thrive. I think Dusty May is a massive, significant program, and I know that he wasn't able to ding Michigan State this year, and Spartan fans sure do love that, but I think that as you get more and more into the twilight of the Tom Izzo career, Dusty May is going to be the king of basketball in that state, and he's always going to be a threat in the Big Ten. I also wanted to bring up here, Jim, and I am totally one to make fun of myself. I I thought for sure AJ Storr was headed back to Madison. So I apologize for cutting that wrestling type promo on the deficiencies of AJ Storr, but I thought for sure that he was back on his way to Madison. Point still stands. Nick Boyd has a championship DNA. AJ Storr does not.
Okay.
Yeah, with Nick Boyd, too, from how you've covered him, Ken, over the years, especially, again, at FAU, what's a story, if you got one, or something that fans might not know about, like if they do some research on him, what's a special story that you got about Nick Boyd that you want to share with us, about like his work ethic, who he is on or off the court, that should get Badger fans excited?
I think that Nick Boyd, Elijah Martin, Nelly Davis, Vlad Golden, those four, and Nick was sort of the ringleader of this. This speaks to the type of competitor he is. I truly believe that Final Four FAU team was simply driven by the desire not to get punked. It culminated in a 35-win season and coming one sequence away from going to the national championship game. But Nick Boyd, and go back to when they got bounced out of the NCAA tournament by North Carolina in Dayton. He specifically referenced that word. We got punked. There is a desperate, urgent desire, and I think it comes from Nick Boyd being overlooked as a high school player and then going to prep school before he made his way down to Boca Raton. He refuses to be embarrassed on the basketball floor. He refuses to be blown out. That team absolutely battled every single time, single minute it took to the floor. Nick Boyd was the face of that. That's what you're getting. Also, I wrote Nick Boyd's recommendation letter to get into grad school at San Diego State. So there you go as well. So if you see him, mention that. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. But I don't say this lightly. I love the guy. I'm thrilled he's going to Madison because I have a special place in my heart for Madison. I think he is going to bring an extra dynamic to that Greg Gard coach team, and you are getting a consummate leader. Nick Boyd was injured with a fractured foot the year before FAU went to the Final Four, and they lost 7 one-possession games that season, including nearly upsetting Miami and Boca Raton. The difference between losing 7 one-possession games and making a run in the NCAA tournament, I firmly believe, was the presence of Nick Boyd not being on the floor and then being on the floor.
Ken, you talked about being a part of FAU now for, I think, 17 or 18 years, you said, coming up. And college basketball's changed a ton during that time. I mean, Badger basketball, the way it's played has changed, but also expectations. Because when Bo was here and Greg Gard was assistant, Badgers were always making Sweet 16s, and that just seems harder. The Badgers, now, we kind of joke that they're not a mid-major, but a mid-major, because they're not going to be able to spend the money on basketball that, other schools can. And it's even worse for the FAUs of the world. Ben Brust, who's now, obviously a former Badger and hosts the show before us here in Madison, gave me a hard time because I was rooting for the FAU players. I was like, that's all I got as an FAU fan. They're not going to stay. So how have you seen college basketball change over the last 5 years specifically? That's been the big change. And how do you think it'll settle? And what do you think it means for a school like FAU? Because we're up here at Wisconsin being like, hey, we have to change our expectations because it's going to take some sort of magical Cinderella find for us to get past Sweet 16 because we don't have the money to compete. There was 4 number ones in the Final Four.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to the fact that the Cinderella is dead. I mean, we've all been alive to see the previous time that 4 number ones went to the Final Four. What I will say is, mid-major teams will make a run. It's inevitable in my mind just because of the sheer amount of movement that takes place in college basketball on a year-to-year basis. What I will say, though, is that, and we've been going through it down here at Florida Atlantic, and FAU has been openly congratulating Elijah Martin for his national championship, and it has rubbed some people the wrong way, but I think FAU is doing the right thing because FAU should absolutely celebrate being the last time we will ever see the purest form of college basketball where players stayed for over 3 years and a core stayed together to make a run and then run it back the year after NIL or lack thereof be damned. I mean, the sun is going to expand into a red giant. We are going to be consumed, and the world will end before we ever see an FAU ever happen again in college basketball. So for fans, and this includes Wisconsin, you better get used to the days of growing close to the player, developing a connection with the player, ending, and you better start taking the route of how we see with European soccer. Support the jersey, support the logo, support the shirt. The days of support the player are gone. Those are dead. We have buried it. You're going to have to recalibrate your fandom, and then I think that there's going to be a lot more acceptance for what this actually is. But it's going to be tenfold at FAU because while the Final Four run was amazing and it pushed Florida Atlantic into a stratosphere, I don't know if I ever thought it would get to. The blessing is also a curse because FAU is the first mid-major now that all of the power programs look at to come poach come portal time when the offseason hits. And so that really, really sucks. And that's our new reality down here is that 75% of the roster is going to be overturned on a year-to-year basis.
Ken, appreciate your time again. My last question for you, going back to Nick Boyd, tough one to put you on the spot here. If you could give me one word to describe Nick Boyd, what is that one word and why?
Dog. I mean, he is just an absolute dog. And, you know, it's funny. You look at him, and he comes in, and he looks pretty. He's a pretty-looking dude. He's got the curly hair, and he's got the piercings, and the guy loves the gym. On road trips, I mean, he was getting pumps in all the time in the fitness center in these hotels. But once it's time to play, he is a dog because as good as he is from a basketball standpoint, he might be a better trash talker. And he does not back down from anybody. I mean, he is a flat out dog, and I can just trust me when I tell you, the coach who is least looking forward to having to game plan against Nick Boyd next year in the Big Ten is the guy that we all know and love in Ann Arbor, Dusty May, because he understands what Nick Boyd is made up as well. And I think that Dusty would probably use the same exact word I just did to describe Nick Boyd.
Ken, awesome stuff. Well, we have you, and this is our show, and we're all Bears fans here. Well, that's the thing. How are we feeling? Are we excited? What's going on?
Well, they, for a second straight year, have won the offseason.
Yeah.
And I tried telling fans last year, I've seen this before, win the offseason, then all of a sudden it's faceplant time. I mean, I remember when the Bears went 13-3 in 2001 with Dick Duran as the head coach, and may he rest in peace now. But so expectations were sky high, and then they went to Champaign, Soldier Field's being renovated, and that was a miserable season. You have a rookie quarterback coming in. Oh, look at this! And look, Keenan Allen's coming in. My God, they drafted a wide receiver in the first round to put with their sparkling new quarterback. Bears fans got way too general about what the Bears quarterback position has been. So, like every offseason with the Bears, and have they done a good job? Yes, but they won the offseason last year too. I am going to subscribe to I'll believe it when I see it. Because, boy, was that horrendous after that Washington game last year.
I agree. I agree. I like what I'm hearing, but I'm doing my absolute best not to get too excited. Ken, thank you so much.
Yeah, as you should. Yeah, as you should.
Ben Johnson hype train is real, though. I think we could all agree, right, boys?
Also, for the record, not everyone on this panel is a Bears fan.
Yeah, Riley is not.
Just wanted to throw that out there for our listening audience.
Can I say this? And I think, Riley, this will appeal to you. I'm assuming Riley's a Packers fan in this spot.
Yes. Yep.
I think the Ben Johnson hire is outstanding. It was the no-brainer. But I am so sick and tired of Bears coaches coming in and pandering to the meatball Chicago fans with listing beating the Packers as a priority. Stop it. You're better than that. You're the Chicago freaking Bears, and you're going to, in your opening press conference, start throwing shade at the Packers. Enough already. If that is your priority and not winning a Super Bowl, or hell, even going to the playoffs and winning a playoff game, then you're destined to fail. Enough of pandering to the dopes in Chicago who only live and breathe and exist to say negative things about the Packers. Hate that.
That does appeal to me. Thank you, Ken.
This will not appeal to Riley. We are going to do I'm going to do a show with Matt Hamilton, Molly Brown, Jim, Matt, and Molly. We're going to be at the Packers bus tour. I am wearing a Bears shirt, and Pablo, you gave me a Bear hat. It's not actually a Chicago Bears hat. It's a hat with a bear on it with Bear colors. So I still will be full-on interviewing Packers today in my Bears stuff. So I will fight that fight up here as best I can.
You're a bold man. You are a bold man for that.
Yeah, I've been doing it if Ken's been down there for 18 years, I've been doing it up here for 18 years. So, yeah, that's like I said, we were traded for each other. Ken, thank you so much for hopping on, and great to hear from you. Great to talk with you.
Guys, great talking to you. You're going to join Nick Boyd, and good luck to AJ Storr, whatever his next step is.
Yeah, another school. That's all we know. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Later, guys.
All right, that's Ken LaVicka, play-by-play voice for FAU. Great things to say about Nick Boyd. So before we get out,
fun, a lot of energy.
I'm more excited about Nick Boyd than I was initially.
I love it, man.
Yeah,
I knew we were getting a good one, but man, we're getting a dog.
Yeah.
We're getting a dog. Riley was excited back there. I saw a big
Riley,
old grin over there.
Yeah, I was fired up listening to that, and I was also thinking, man, this is great social media content as well. But I know if I'm thinking that means Badgers fans are going to love hearing this. I love hearing this. Nick Boyd, he better be, as he said, the best guard to come through Madison the past decade now. I'm expecting. I have high expectations. They have jumped now.
We've seen some good ones, too. We've seen some really good ones.
We have, and I think Boyd and Blackwell together. I don't know Rhodey as well, and obviously Rapp will figure out, but I think Winter's a tough guy, tougher than maybe he comes across. So having some of those, and then you hear Krabenhoft, and I don't know if he'll be here. That San Diego State job could be something that goes to him, but Chambliss and Gard and Penny and Krabenhoft, they're all dogs. So, like, that's having players like that should put the Badgers in a good position. They at least be fun to watch this year. So
I want to be at a practice in here on Trash Talk, man.
Yeah,
if he's
right?
We're gonna talk to him on media day for sure. We're like, hey, we heard you're a trash talker. What you got to say right now, man?
Right. Well, at media day, I have to go and I'll have to wear short sleeves to show off my owl tattoo for the FAU Owls. So,
hooty hoo.
Yeah, hoot hoot. All right. Thanks for watching. This has been the Jump Around on ESPN Madison's YouTube.